So hello, everyone. Welcome, public. Welcome, commissioners. Thank you. We are going to start on time and hopefully end on time. The first order of business is calling the meeting to order, which I've just done. And the second order of business is to approve the minutes of our last meeting. Philip sent them out last night or the day before, I believe. I know that Dale sent in one correction about wording about past members of military, and I assume those corrections were made, Philip? Yep. So if anyone wants to make a motion to accept the minutes as amended, is there a second? We have a second. So can we call for a vote? Everyone in favor, please say aye or raise their hands, or both. Aye hands. Any abstentions or nays? Okay, the minutes, thank you, Philip. The minutes have been accepted. And third item of business, presentation on the name of Hampton Park. And excuse me, sir, if I mispronounce your last name, Dr. Hector Kirko? Okay, so we have a microphone for you. This is being recorded. I've identified you, but if you want to stand up and identify yourself, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. May I sit there and speak into this mic?
How about it? Sure. And you just have to, turn on you'll see a button that's got a person on it. Turn that button on and you'll see that the light's green and that you're on.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name's Hector Kirko, and I'm a resident of Wagner Terrace. And I am here, well, first to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, and then to add my comments to what I hope is a long list of people who are thinking about renaming the park and asking you to make a recommendation to City Council for renaming the park. I don't know if such a list exists, but I hope there are many, and there will be more people who are wishing that. It's a brief argument. I'll be very brief. And the facts that underlie it, most of you already know, I'm sure. The argument is simple to make, but the history underlying it, I think, is the facts are incontrovertible. First, I'd start by saying that the name of the park is an important issue because the park is important. It's a beautiful park, especially last week with the azaleas, but it's beautiful all year long with the pond and the paths, etc. Hundreds of people a day will use those paths and go to the ponds and also walk around Mary Murray Boulevard, stroll, bike, skateboard, etc. Tour buses consistently go around the park. Lots of events are held in the park. And so the park is a highly valued and highly visible part of the park system, but the neighborhoods there and the city as a whole. And of course, our city draws national and international attention because of its history. So this isn't a case of naming a side street and wondering if we should rename it, but we're dealing with a highly visible, highly valued part of Charleston. The second point I'd make is that it's named after Wade Hampton, who was governor of South Carolina, 1876 to 1879, and then senator 1879 to 1891. And of course, there's nothing unusual about naming a park after a distinguished public servant. In this case, though, if you look a little bit beyond those bald facts, you have some problematic aspects of his history. And increasingly problematic, I would say, given the nation has kept moving since the park was named after him. There's four main issues. Number one is that he was a Confederate general. The second is that he was from one of the largest slave holding families in the Southeast, and his own personal slave holdings are estimated to have been between 900 and 3,000 individuals. The third is that and this is now after he becomes a politician, he is a lost causer, as we would say, where the Civil War is recast to minimize the force of the slavery issue in instigating it and described in more morally just, heroic terms. And then the fourth, which is the most problematic, is that he was, as a politician, and in fact, as running for governor and then as governor, he was part of the Redeemer movement, which was trying to reassert white conservative leadership in South Carolina. And he was, if not a member, he was affiliated with the Red Shirts, which in his own election and then later were trying to violently repress Black vote. And in fact, he permitted red shirt meetings in the governor's mansion. So for those four reasons, it's at least problematic and at least worth discussing if we should continue to name the park after him. Meanwhile, we have lots of excellent alternatives as to what to name the park because of its long and storied history. We have it being a famous, elegant race course from 1791 to the Civil War. We have the Interstate and West Indian Exposition, which sounds intriguing, and that was 1901 to 1902. It was a zoo for many years, which is interesting in and of itself, from 1932 to 1975. And then, as we all know, and there's a plaque commemorating this at Hampton Park, it was the first, or is argued to be the first Decoration Day, or that led to Decoration Day, which in turn became Memorial Day. And that was, of course, accompanied with a very large march and ceremony. And then this part is disputed a little bit because there are a couple of other towns that would like to claim credit for being the first Memorial Day. And in fact, Lyndon Johnson in 1971, I think, when it became Memorial Day, gave that credit to a town in New York. But I think our long and storied history in Charleston and the size of power of that initial celebration makes it a shoo-in for being the first Memorial Day. So we have lots of alternatives. Memorial Day Park seems a little strong and being specific, but Memorial Park, for example, would allow us to celebrate that history, but also for people to memorialize whatever they wanted to memorialize, whatever they felt is of value, including Governor Hampton. So that's the argument. The best counter argument would be tradition. We've been doing it this way for a long time. Why should we change it now? And I'm not a historian, I'm an anthropologist, cultural anthropologist, and I know full well the value and importance of traditions in serving as a glue to keep communities healthy. But saying something is a tradition merely says that it is long-standing. It doesn't really describe the content as being good or not good. And in fact, we're continually revising, modifying, eliminating, adding traditions as we go along and make sure that they conform to our values at any point in time. I'm reminded of the story of two women cooking in a kitchen, ready to cook a slice of country ham. And the cook cuts the edges off the country ham, the tips off it. You know the story. Before cooking it, and her friend says, "Why are you doing that?" And she says, "Well, that's what my mom always did. That's how I learned to do it." And her friend says, "Well, that seems weird because you're wasting some perfectly good meat there." So later the cook thinks about this and says, "Well, why do we do this anyway?" And calls her mom and asks her mom why we cut the ends off the slice of country ham. And she says, "Well, that's what your grandmother always did. That's how I learned it. That's what we do." So now, fully intrigued, she calls grandma and says, "Why is it that you cut the edges off the slice of country ham before cooking it?" And she says, "Because my skillet was too small." And so that's a tradition that surely would be reevaluated in light of that new information. And all I ask is that we consider this tradition of the name of Hampton Park in light of some of the complicated history that surrounds it. And that's it.
I have a question. Was the park always named Hampton Park from it?
No, that was after his death, 1901 or 1902. I would see two.
Or if you already said that.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Good question.
And when
Okay.
was it made a park?
I don't know that either. I know it was a race course first.
After the 1901, 1902 exposition, then it was It had been privately owned.
So first was the race course, I guess. By the way, that's why Mary Murray is almost a perfect mile, is because it overlays the race course.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you mentioned 4 reasons why the name should be reconsidered. And my simple question is, were those things considered at the time that the name was being determined? And it all occurred before his death and the naming after his death. So all of it was already known. Why were those reasons reason enough not to name it that?
I would say, and there's an excellent Smithsonian article that discusses this too. The park was named after him, not in spite of those problems, but exactly because of those issues that I brought up. And it was part of a movement to name monuments, streets, lots of different statues, et cetera, to support the lost cause movement and philosophy. So he was celebrated. The park was named for him exactly to celebrate the things that I'm bringing up now as potentially problematic.
Your exposition on the roots of the naming of Hampton Park, I found not only interesting, but, very informative. And it seems to me as well that we should be looking at a lot of places that have been named for figures who were divisive in the era immediately following Reconstruction, or the restoration of white supremacy. That kind of approach to living in the South or living in the United States, I thought it needs to be reviewed for everyone's benefit, not just for the benefit of African American people who were severely oppressed for 100 years, not allowed to vote, not allowed to say anything. Many of the problems we're facing today and the turmoil going on in society today is happening because of that refusal to allow popular discussion of important public policy. And that's what we're going through today with Mr. Trump and his refusals to look for public support to conduct war and other serious matters. The important thing you said about it, I think the most important thing you said about it was that it was used as an internment camp during the Civil War, and many Union soldiers were buried there in Hampton Park. They were subsequently removed to Beaufort in the cemetery, U.S. cemetery in Beaufort, but the park really became important because the children, the African-American children of Charleston, went out and decorated the graves of the Union soldiers who had brought a greater measure of freedom to this society. And by getting rid of the past, of the prior Confederate regime. So what we're looking at is a memorial to the valor and the righteousness of, if we want to quote the Battle Hymn of the Republic, the righteousness of the cause that brought a greater measure of freedom to the United States of America. And I think we want to emphasize that, and that Memorial Day Park, though quite formal, is a good example of how you can name things to make them really have meaning. People don't know that the first Memorial Day, we put up I'm happy to have been part of the coterie that put together the sign for the Memorial Day, recognizing Memorial Day that stand in the park. It's right across the street from my house. I live there and I, enjoy it every day. As well as the Denmark Vesey statue,
Mhm.
that we were able to erect in the park as well. So I think it's important to note that part of history, which has been obscured by racist rhetoric for far too long. And I think that we need to adopt the kind of proposal you're making. And I would support it. I would support it definitely for Memorial Day Park. And so that American people who come and other people who come to Charleston and enjoy the park understand where Memorial Day comes from.
Any other comments from Ken? Oh, sorry. I think Ken the first. David, were you first?
Where would you draw the line on renaming things in the city of Charleston? Would you draw the line at, take away Calhoun Street, Lawrence Street? Where would you draw the line?
Well, I
Because
think-
otherwise you're going to denude a lot of South Carolina history.
Yes.
And it's always very interesting to me that people who, and I'm not saying you individually, but who want to be inclusive and diverse, only want it on the terms that they want. And that diversity and inclusion includes people whom you may not agree with. And it seems to me that if you continue down the road like you were suggesting, that's exactly what you would end up with. There would be no Confederate, nothing Confederate. That would be gone, even though Charleston and a lot of what happened in Charleston related to the Confederacy. Now, you can say whatever you want about pros, cons, and indifference about it, but the reality is this is a history commission. I also serve on the South Carolina Historical Society, and I've been on the Archives and History Commission. And the idea is you add things, you don't subtract. And that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years, is been adding more and more relating to African-American history and all. But the idea that you would then want to do, excuse me, to denude the landscape of a tremendous amount of history in the state and in the city is what's very troublesome to me. So that's why I ask you, where would you draw the line?
And
I see that point, and I agree that this initiative isn't about erasing history. I think it has to be looked at a case-by-case basis rather than a general policy to change all names that have anything to do with the Confederacy or Civil War or anything else. But I think a park, the name of a park is an endorsement, if you will, of whatever that name stands for. I
Well, no
think-
more than a street.
Except that the park is very visible, multi-use, multi-events. Many call Hampton Park the crown jewel of the park system. I tend to go along with that since I live right by there. So some sites will have more significance, more symbolic significance than others, and their names will carry more symbolic weight than others. So I don't think, I agree with you that the goal is not to erase history. On the other hand, we don't want to endorse any particular set of values that we don't believe in by having a particular name in a highly visible site.
thank you. While we value discussion, I do think we eventually need to move toward an action item, but I think Ken is going to speak, and then maybe Angela would like to speak after Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just have a point of information. There is obviously a long history in that area of Hampton Park. And one of the most important parts of our history is embedded there it was Augustine Prevost's campsite in May of 1779. And it's also where the Battle of the Old Race Course was fought. Part of that battlefield encompasses Hampton Park. The Continentals, the Pulaski Legion, took about 43 casualties, and that gravesite has never been found. And Colonel Michael Kovacs went down in that area also. He was buried by Augustine Prevost's soldiers, and they had so much respect for him. According to the after action report, the commander of the brigade of the regiment actually said that they buried him completely in full uniform with his sword, and that gravesite has never been found. So I think it's important that we have that information in our minds, that it's a very historic place. Thank you.
Sure, just one note that several years ago, a commission or a committee was created, and many of you participated in that, to discuss, the approach to various monuments and namings and streets and parks and what have you. And the report to that, for that committee, I think it was called the Arts and Culture or the Arts and History Committee under a previous administration, was accepted by City Council. And so my question is, why don't we go back to that report? It was systematically done. There was a whole year was spent on this conversation about adding names or taking away names, or how we address this issue. And it would be worthwhile, since this seems to be coming up, and thank you for your presentation, that it would help us, and I think behoove the city, to review that material again. I'm sure you've got copies somewhere. I know I have a file that's like that, but you don't want that.
Well, I think that might have been the commission that ultimately was named at Hark, which was ultimately dissolved. So if that was, so I do think that's an option for us as well. Are there any other comments from board members? It's odd when I am the voice of reality, but I do try to keep this meeting goal-oriented, but then also want to bring in larger information as well. So I think by point of order, and I will be corrected if, we cannot act on this today because there is not a resolution before us. If you wanted to present a resolution for us to vote for or against, you could bring it back to us and present it 10 days before. Like I said, so I think we're getting this information, we're getting your presentation as information. So I'm not sure that we can go for it and vote on it today because we really don't have a resolution to vote for, to vote on wording per se. But I would also like to interject that actually what is happening today, and maybe at this current moment, is the state Senate is bringing up the monuments and markers. They are debating currently as state law stands. I believe it takes 2/3. The cities are powerless. It takes 2/3 of the state legislature to change the name of any street, public place, etc. It memorializes a war, a person, or something. Today, being debated in the Senate, is actually they're trying to change the law so that nothing can be changed unless it was 100% vote of the General Assembly. So as we stay now, I think even if we do put the resolution forward, I do think legally the city, we would be breaking the law if that, but that's, I'm putting that out there for information. And I think Angela put her information out there for information as well, too, that there seems to be, this is part of a larger issue that was brought up before. But to go back to your presentation, which is why we're here today, is do you have any other questions for us? Or is there any more discussion from commission members? Peg.
Sorry, I liked very much what you had to say, sir, but I like what you had to say the best. We're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the formation of this nation. And it would seem to me, if we were going to change the name of that park, it should celebrate that. That is the most monumental thing that has ever happened in this city or in this town or in this country. Thank you.
And if I may add another thing, just for a suggestion, I think this happened, David talking about adding to history. As I remember, there's a Denmark VC plaque in the park. There is a Memorial Day plaque in the park. I don't think there's going to be a sign that we approved last month about a horse, a police horse who died and is buried in that park.
Huh.
I don't think there's a sign that explains the name of Hampton Park. So I'm just throwing that out there as a possible thought, is that one could approach the city to have a sign designed at city expense describing Hampton Park and giving this entire history, the Revolutionary War history, the Memorial Day history, although there is a separate plaque there, the South Carolina Interstate and West Indian Exposition, the explanation of who Hampton is. And again, that is something, if that is brought up to us, that is something that we really can, chew into, and there is a parallel for that. Recently, Moultrie Playground near Colonial Lake, just had a sign and a name, no explanation. But now there's one of these sort of pulpit signs with an image of Moultrie on there explaining and, the history and that kind of thing too. So, so I think in your hands, you have the opportunity to come back to us next month with a resolution, which may or may not pass. And if it passes, may not be legal to follow through, or, there is a possibility of following through, and we can direct you to the people at the city parks to suggest that appropriate signage be done.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thanks again for the opportunity to speak to you. I did want to mention that about 4 years, I guess during COVID, the Wagner Terrace Neighborhood Association had a vote, discussed this issue and had a vote on it. And unanimously of those who were present, and it was all by Zoom, voted to bring this up to the mayor and the city council. So that might tie in with some of what you were talking about.
Yes.
Thank you again very much.
And thank you very much for your participation. And maybe just house clean stuff. So maybe.
Pardon?
Would you mind turning off your speaker? And now I'm just thinking out loud. So then maybe, Philip, for our next meeting, we could get that report that Angela talks about, that just for our information, we can get it sent to us before. So if another issue like this comes up again, we'll know the ground that's already been covered. Okay. Thank you, sir. And now
One additional comment with regard to the legality of the state requiring changes to be approved by 100% of the legislature. It's obviously restrictive of freedom of speech and could probably be challenged very easily on those grounds. And so I'm hoping that you won't be discouraged, Dr. Quaker, by the recalcitrance of the legislature. And we can hope for, by using our democratic power, getting out there and changing persons who do not believe in democracy and who want to stifle change. All right. Thank you.
okay. Well, you're going to be up again in a minute, Wilmot, as well too, because the next item on our agenda is the draft resolution that has been circulated to us, requested by Commissioner Frazier. And before we start, we do have lots of background information, and I'm going to start with the preface, which I hope is not necessary, but I respect you all very much on this committee, and I hope we will all respect each other, because I know we have very strong, passionately held beliefs, but I also think Charleston always gets the reputation for being the most polite city as well. So if we can present our passions politely, let's all do it. So do you want to give us some background information, Wilmot? I mean, we have I'm sure we've all read it, but since it's your resolution, if you want to give us your thoughts about it, and then we can maybe open it up for debate and
Sure.
turn your light on.
Thank you much. The resolution before us asks that the Marion Square Commission, which existed for a long time before it kind of became moribund, be reseated by the city government. This is not my resolution alone. There were other people involved with formulating it, particularly Representative Ed Sutton of the legislature, state legislature. I tried to, and I think the legislature is in session today, so he's unable to be here. The only element, you've read it, so the only element that's missing from it is that I would ask that the monument placed on Marion Square commemorating the Confederacy be immediately removed for lack of public discussion. And there has been also information brought to the attention of the commission regarding the relationship between the city of Charleston and the people who pretend to own Marion Square, or the commission, the group that pretends to own Marion Square. That relationship is, again, cloudy, legally cloudy, and one that we have to examine. In any case, the monument that has been placed there is a monument to an illegal and defunct institution, the Confederate States of America. It carries the seal of the Confederate States of America, and it is there to venerate the Confederate States of America. We don't want to have people venerating past wrongs. We want past wrongs to be kept in the past and put aside as much as we possibly can. There are places for such a monument. There are Confederate graveyards and other places that will not add to acrimony in society, will not add to a belief among young people that they have something to protect in championing past wrongs, such as the Confederacy, slavery, and all the crimes that were associated with that era. We're living in a new era with new possibilities. And Charleston needs to look forward to creating the most we can for people in this new era. We're debating 19th century questions in the new millennium, first quarter of the new millennium, at the end of the first quarter of the new millennium. And that shouldn't be. We should be, I think, much more forward-looking, much more concerned with rectifying the past to the extent that we can, and trying to make a brighter, more freedom-loving future for all people. Not trying to recall and venerate obvious evil that existed in our past. That is why I'm calling for an addition to this resolution, draft resolution, which does not mention current monuments, that is monuments now existing on Marion Square, including the monument to the Confederacy and to General Robert E. Lee on the, that was surreptitiously placed there.
So
The commission has existed, has a prior history in the city with regard to city council. So it's not something new. that they have to adopt or create. They can recreate it, reseed it, and this relationship between this private group that pretends to own public property and the city can be struck legally as it deserves to be. Yet the language that was presented in writing to the committee, to the commission rather, pretends that the prior mayor, Mayor Tecklenburg, signed an agreement. Well, he did sign an agreement, obviously, but you can't agree to do something. The law will not support an agreement to do something that is illegal. And the illegality of the placement of that monument is something that cannot be countenanced, no matter who signed what.
Okay, so for the sake of expediency, I know Dale may want to say something. The issues that I want to point out is, as an action item, if we are going to vote on this resolution, Wilmot, we will need to know the full wording.
Full wording,
But again, so.
Marion Square,
so
governance.
You would, so if you could write that down where you would want, so, we'll have time to do that. And so then maybe Philip could put it up on the screen. So if we're going to do a resolution and amend it, we'll need to know the amended language.
That
But
the
also-
monument,
And if you don't mind, do it silently so I can continue this. And again, there's no rush. I think we're going to be in discussion for a little bit. So I would just say, make sure, that that you get down what you want for us to either vote on or not. But also too, I know Dale may have a response, but I also too, since we're talking about what's legal and illegal about the city, I feel very much over my head that I can't say what's legal or illegal. And do we have some representative from the city that can tell us, as to what the status is? It can certainly bring us up more to things and our opinions of what's legal and what's legal. No.
yes, I would certainly like to hear the city's explanation. Point of personal privilege, can you give me a 5-minute break?
Sure, if you want,
I need 5 minutes for personal.
so, okay, but what I understand is, looking at my Robert's Rules of Order, let me look at it real quickly. I think we need 2/3 of people to vote for a recess for 5 minutes. So, Wilmot says he needs a personal
3
reason.
minutes.
To leave for 3 minutes. So, right, so, okay, second, so how many people? Okay, so like I said, I just brushed up on Robert's Rules of Order, so that's fine.
Thank you.
We'll wait for your return. Thank you, Google. Robert's Rules of Order simplified.
You opposed to trying to come up with a systematic plan?
No, not at all.
Whatever.
Wherever you're comfortable, wherever you're comfortable that you've got a microphone. Yeah, Yes. So I think we're ready to resume our meeting. And so then we have someone we have a representative from the city. Please, thank you for being here. And the green light, as you probably know.
Thank you for allowing me to speak this afternoon. My name is Julia Copeland. I'm out of the legal department here at the City of Charleston. And initially, Dr. Green asked that I provide a history on Marion Square, historical and legal history on Marion Square as it's related to the city. So what I'm going to share with you today, and most of you probably know this, but I just want to attribute this to minutes culled from city records from the 1800s, deeds that we poured over from the 1800s. Also, I would like to attribute some of this history to Nick Butler, who has this podcast called Charleston Time Machine, which was great for me. It gave me a point of reference to start looking for documents. So the one thing, I have a whole 3-page thing here, so I'm not going to bore you with all of it. But what I do want to point out is what most of you know is in 1833, City Council did deed to the field officers of the 4th Brigade a deed in trust for the initial 6 acres for Marion Square. And throughout that time, throughout history, there were some intervening factors because ultimately it was in trust with the restriction that they need to turn it into a public mall and parade ground and build it out as a park. And part of that was to demolish several buildings that were currently sitting on there at the time it was deeded over, okay? So, you know, we have the Civil War, we have occupation, all of those fun things. And so by 1882, not a lot had been done to further the condition that was initially laid out in 1833. And there was a 50-year time clock on that. So by 1882, we were reaching that 50-year mark. So Mayor Courtney, in the minutes from 1882, gave a great history about the relationship between the field officers and the city and all of the efforts that were put toward revitalizing this park. But one of the big things in that 1882 meeting was the creation of this commission on Marion Square. The purpose of that commission, from what we can surmise from these meeting minutes, was to help the field officers and the city come up with a game plan in order to bring the park up and the public mall up to the condition that was initially set out in 1833 when the property was initially deeded to the field officers. So that, in essence, was the creation or the basis for the creation of the commission. So they set the commission up. They met, they came back, I think, a month later in October with the recommendations that came from the commission. And part of that was to demolish some of the structures on the site. And so that went into place. So throughout the years, just so you all know, the commission did meet sporadically, and we pulled that from clerk of council comments and minutes that are still in our archives, where various members of the commission would roll on and roll off. The last record of an actual formal meeting was in 1998. And I believe Mr. Thieling's father was on that commission prior to you, and then you were on in the 90s. Okay, so 1998 was the last record we have of a formal meeting of the commission, okay? So the next thing we can look to is November 10th of 2015, okay? That's when Mayor Riley presented for council's benefit and consideration this memorandum of understanding. And I think what's really important is in those minutes, just the words of Mayor Riley. So he introduced for consideration this memorandum that will, quote, serve as the guiding document of our joint stewardship of this wonderful civic space. The MOU, he states, will continue this wonderful partnership for many years to come. You know, and in those minutes, if you ever care to look at them from 2015, he gives a great history about the relationship between the Guard and the field officers and the city from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, the 60s on, and the gradual progressive work that was done to the park. So from the city's perspective, the adoption of that 2015 MOU along with the 2021 amendment supersedes the commission. Yes, the commission does still exist in the ordinance, but the delegation of the responsibilities and the duties of both the city and the field officers supersedes the need for the commission. So one, Marion Square is under the ownership of the field officers, so long as it's maintained as a public mall and parade ground. And two, the arrangement regarding the management, regulation, control, special events of the Marion Square property it lives in the MOU that's currently existing between the city and the field officers. Any questions for me?
The one quick question I would have, sorry, will not beat you to the punch. So do you, in your interpretation of the MOU, that the field office also, not just, special permitting on the mall, et cetera, but
Mhm.
that does include all of the monuments and structures being built there? Their permission was sought for the Holocaust Memorial. I'm assuming their permission was sought for tearing down the bandstand that was on there. So I'm just asking if your interpretation is that so that the 4th Brigade does also control the monuments and the structures on the thing, and not just the running of it or allowing of special events.
Correct. It's private property, in essence. It's owned by the field officers.
Okay. Any other questions?
My question relates to the basis of the agreement
Yes, sir.
between the memorandum of agreement
Mhm.
that was signed between the city and field officers. Can one make an agreement to do something, a legal agreement to do something which is on its face illegal?
Based on the MOU?
I'm asking whether one can whether one can construct
Mhm.
a legal agreement to do something which is on its face illegal. Can you, for example, make a legal agreement to commit murder?
Oh, goodness. Well, in that context, absolutely not.
Obviously not. So an agreement that says that you can put a monument to a defunct illegal organization on public property is not something that the city could support, is it?
From a legal perspective,
Yeah, from a legal
I
perspective.
don't think it is illegal for the field officers to make an arrangement to place a monument on their private property, no.
You don't think it's illegal for them to place a monument on public property
It's private.
that champions an illegal organization?
It's private property.
You're saying that Marion Square is private property?
Yes, sir. From that perspective. If they made an agreement to put
Was there
an
any?
illegal
was there
monument on
any
city
good-
property.
What good consideration do the field officers bring to this contract? This agreement?
Per the terms of the MOU?
Do they pay money?
No, sir.
They don't pay money? What do they bring then?
Per the MOU, the city helps maintain landscaping, grass,
See, that's the
irrigation.
taxpayers, yeah. But the field officers, what do they bring? Nothing?
I'm assuming the answer is that they own the property.
On what grounds do they claim ownership?
And it didn't sound, it don't mean to, but they're an 1833 deed that is on the record, which you have. So the city
Correct.
did own it at one time, Wilmot, and they sold it to the 4th Brigade in 1833.
1833.
And so then they've been owning that. Their successor organizations have been owning that. I'm assuming.
I maintain that all that is antebellum claptrap. And that what we need to do is to clarify. The law doesn't like vagueness regarding the ownership of real property. And heirs property, all kinds of other constructs where people don't know who owns what and who has rights over real property. That's why I'm calling for the reseating of one reason I'm calling for the reseating of the commission, which had authority to do all these things. when it was seated up until 1998, as you mentioned. I think we need to clarify that. I think the city of Charleston and the citizens of Charleston deserve to know who owns Marion Square, whether it is indeed a public square or whether it's a privately owned entity. And we need to, I think, insist, since we maintain it with our tax monies, make sure that we are getting our money's worth, and insist upon the public ownership as regulated by a public body, the commission, which I've asked us to recommend be reseated. Thank you.
May I answer the rest of that question? Okay, so the city, yes, we do contribute toward maintenance of the Marion Square Park. In exchange, the field officers allow countless events year-round. We have the farmers market, we have Christmas, the celebration of Christmas there and things like that. They do participate in the special events committee to ensure that everything that comes through there is fully insured. So there is an active relationship between the city and the field officers over the maintenance and regulation of the park.
Do you agree with me that the law does not like vagueness in ownership of real property?
There is a deed.
There is a deed.
I would say there is no vagueness in the ownership of the property.
But in reality, given all that you've presented here today,
Yes, sir.
there is some question regarding who really owns that the main square of the city of Charleston.
I would say no.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just say that I've actually looked at Wilmot, one of our things there, this is a transcript of the 1833 deed when the city of Charleston sells it to. And, there are, like Danny Ravenel's house has been held in perpetuity, since even before that. And I think if we start, and this is hard, I think we could all say, do we own our land? Did we steal it from the Native Americans? But I think the law shows that if you own the property and if you're paying the taxes on the property or whatever, you own the property. So I think we all grew up with the idea, thinking because we used it all the time as the public, that we just assumed it was in the public domain. It's like, doing something copyright and realize, no, it's not actually in the public domain. And again, so this has been educational for me. And this is why I asked Julia to come, just because I knew that this would be a thorny issue and it was way above my head. And according to attorneys and according to the records, real estate attorneys, the Fourth Brigade owns that land and has owned that parcel since 1833. There has been some change over time as to how the Fourth Brigade interacts with the city. That has shifted over time, but the basic fact that the Fourth Brigade owns the property has never been under debate, apparently since 1833, if I'm correct, Dale.
A part of ownership of land involves the assertion of dominion and control, the right to exclude what you don't want and to permit what you want. In our instance, in one instance in which I was associated, the establishment of the monument to Denmark Vesey, the committee, the Denmark Vesey and Spirit of Freedom Committee, initially intended to have that monument placed on Marion Square. The reason for that, of course, was that Marion, the Citadel was constructed, or not constructed, but brought about as an institution because of the Denmark Vesey conspiracy. So historically, there was that historical tie-in, and something that needed to be, the struggle between the forces of freedom and the forces of tyranny in America has been centered on Marion Square for a long time. A lot of things have happened on Marion Square. And so that putting the Denmark Vesey statue there was not something that we just wanted to do because it was a prominent place, but because Denmark Vesey actually impacted what was happening on that square and what was happening in the city. Well, the Mayor Riley at the time, I think, said that the Fourth Brigade would not permit that kind of statue, and as a result, the statue was compromised. Statue was placed in Hampton Park, where a Redeemer, a park named for a Redeemer. So you've got this mixture of stories and conflict that go on, that historical conflict that goes on for a long period of time. I want to clarify. The objective of my effort is to clarify, to make sure that people understand that this is not private property. This is public property that the people owned by the people of Charleston, that was transferred surreptitiously in 1833 by people who are not acting with real public consent, but with consent of the powerful at the time. And as a result of it, the transfer of that property is subject to question. Where we're empowering the private over the public in the use of what is obviously public property. So I'm hoping that the commission will take that broader view. We'll see the history behind this public space and utilize that in their thinking to support this resolution so that we reseat the officially established commission for Marion Square. And it makes no sense to give a private organization the dominion and control over what is obviously public space. They will have a role if this resolution is adopted, that the field officers will have a role to play in the development of Marion Square's history, but they will not be able to assert ownership.
Okay, so if you have your resolution written out, maybe we can hand it to Philip so that he could put it up on the screen.
I did. I
Okay,
did.
great. And so then I will say though, just doing by analogy, Wilmot, and we may not be happy about it, but I will give you examples of the city has done that, which is now private property on the corner of Logan and I guess Franklin Street. That's once where the workhouse once stood. When it tumbled in the earthquake, the city sold that public land. There are now private houses on it. When the city of Charleston extended the Battery in 1911 and drew up all of those lots, the city owned all of those lots and they sold it to people in private property. So I'm just saying that the city does have a history of taking public land and selling it to entities that are not government entities.
I would agree that the city has that kind of power to some extent, but not to the extent that it involves the main square of the city.
Okay, and I will just point out that at that point, it was not the main square of the city. It is now. At that point, it was actually outside of city limits. The city of Charleston did not expand beyond Boundary Street, as Calhoun was called, until 1850. So in 1833, when the city of Charleston was selling that, it was not part of the incorporated city.
What I understand, the wall was, and a portion of the wall, the hornwork was there, located at that point.
Right,
Yeah.
it's still
So
there.
it was a part of the wall city.
Yeah. That was put up in the Revolutionary War, as Ken will certainly attest. So I think the order of business is is there more discussion before we vote on Dale? is there a motion that we vote on the resolution as and haven't seen the amendment resolution? So, okay, well, you made the motion that we.
No motion has yet been made.
So, so is there a motion before us, Wilmot, to adopt this amended resolution? Yes. Is there a second? Sorry. So is there a second?
With no second, the motion would die.
Then the motion fails. So what I would suggest, Wilmot, I know that I think, and y'all can remind me, is it every city council meeting that people can sign up to speak? So is it 3 minutes? Or a minute or a minute and a half? Yeah, so, I mean, I think, yeah, this is something, if someone feels very strongly about this one, that every city council meeting, you can sign up and to speak. And I think that this is something that you really strongly.
No, I'm not the only one who feels
Right.
that this is
Right.
wrong. You know, there are lots of people in the city of Charleston who feel that this is wrong. I spoke with Anna Catherine and the Preservation Society,
Right.
which has written a letter in support of this resolution. So I'm not and Ed Sutton, who was a state representative representing the city of Charleston, has, you know, helped to draft this resolution. So I'm not the only one who feels that this is something that needs to be attended to and that we need to rectify.
I mean, I think a
So-
lot of people would agree with you, and I was just suggesting.
Yeah, well, then they should
Because
have, I hope some people on this commission do, because they're in charge of the history of the city. And if they don't respect the history of the city, then what are they doing on the commission?
I will just respond for maybe some of us is, I think a lot of us are in sympathy with not seeing, but the issue is a non-issue. We cannot vote on anything that is on private property. And this is on private property. And I think that's the issue that's probably conflicting some of us here, is we have no power at all over private property.
Well, if the city has no power at all regarding
Our
this.
commission
Right,
has.
we are part of the city. We're not a private group here.
We are not.
We are part of the government of the city of Charleston.
With
A commission.
with very restricted powers.
Restricted powers to recommend, and that's all we're doing.
Right, to recommend on objects on public property.
Yeah, we're not, that's our right of free speech.
Right.
You have the right to recommend
Yeah,
and to use that
Right,
power
yeah.
to rectify city action or non-action.
Right,
Yep.
so I'm digging through
Chairman.
my agenda.
Commissioner Teeling has his hand up.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, could I be allowed a few minutes to
Please.
inform the commission on the subjects that were involved in that proposed resolution? And it's extensive, but I believe it'll be informative. And I think it'll add not only to information, but to our education and understanding of a major part of Charleston. If I may have the time, and if I go too long, please call me down.
Or will yawn.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank the city attorney for her legal view of Marion Square's ownership. I think it has gone a long way to help us to understand what we're actually dealing with here. And it's good that the resolution was going to be up on the screen, but now that's not germane to this, but I did follow the structure of that resolution in preparing my remarks. So I think you'll recognize the subjects. And Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners, I want to respond to the components of the proposed resolution, clearly stating that I am obviously opposed to its passage. And I request that I be recognized not only as a member of this commission, but also as chairman of the Board of Field Officers of the 4th Brigade. That would be your prerogative to recognize me in that way. I appreciate that, sir. He nodded his head, yes. My comments are going to be extensive because this proposed resolution and the subject before us involves a lot of detailed aspects of Marion Square, and I want this commission at least to be informed. Passage would have had this commission state that Marion Square is among Charleston's most prominent civic spaces, but does it know the current relationship between the city of Charleston and the property owner that allows Marion Square to be this prominent space? It says we're aware that decisions affecting Marion Square have significant consequences. What is the commission's awareness of this process? I'd like to help you with that. It's because the commission has the property owner's representative. Is it because I'm on this committee, which probably not? Or is it based on recent uninformed and misleading newspaper reports? And I'll stress that. Mr. Chairman, these questions appear rhetorical, but we should be given answers by any proponent who intends to continue with this this approach that this resolution has put before us. It says that the commission is aware of the commission's historically established a Marion Square Commission in 1882. I could go on about that in defense of the current situation, and my points will all come to an understanding. First, we do accept the fact that this is private property and that there is a very formal, even though all old, but very well established agreement between the owners of Marion Square with a deed of purchase in the city of Charleston as to how our public property can be used as a public park for the public's use. It's not publicly owned, but it's publicly used. The resolution, excuse me, the 1833 deed simply says two things, and that is that the city and the board agreed that the property be left open as a military ceremonial and training ground, a parade field, in other words, and that it would also be left open as a public mall. Well, today we use the term public park, but public mall was common at that time, and it said forever. Well, public mall means public park, but forever means forever. And we are in forever right now, today, tomorrow, and yesterday since 1833. I won't belabor that point. The history of the interaction of the board in the city has changed over the years. It was interrupted for a good while with Civil War, with occupation by federal troops, and by Reconstruction.
Occupation by federal troops?
Sir?
Occupation by federal troops?
The
In
city
their own
was
country?
occupied by federal troops. Yes, sir.
In their own country? Federal troops, yeah. Occupation, I just.
May I go ahead, sir?
Objection to the term occupation.
Please. I mean, if we would not interrupt,
Okay.
allow people.
I'm gonna cut this short.
I'm sorry, sorry.
I will cut this short. Yes, sir. Thank you. And just another, I'm gonna make one more point. And I'll refer to the terms that are in here. The absence of being aware of the absence of public commission process reduces transparency, invites unilateral action in a space that functions as a public square, regardless of the underlying title of the property. Why would or should we accept anything that is titled or based on regardless of the underlying title? The underlying title is with the Board of Field Officers. We've just heard that from the city's highest legal authority. And why would this commission, if we were to take any kind of action in that direction, have no regard for local lawful ownership? We should not view the proposed resolution wording as rhetorical. It's not rhetorical, and it's very real to those of us who are involved with the Board of Field Officers, involved with the many, many aspects of city and owner relationships in the execution of the Memorandum of Understanding, the deed of 1833, and the various agreements we have, especially with the Special Events Committee of the City of Charleston, as well as with the legal office and the mayor's office. I could go on and on about it. I hope to close it down. But please understand that, this board does not pretend to own Marion Square. It does own Marion Square. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. The next order of business is miscellaneous business. Is there any miscellaneous business?
This is apropos. I've said this before, excuse me. We shouldn't be dealing with resolutions. We had one, and then we had another, and then we had another, now we had another. That's not really our job. You know, our job is not to parse resolutions and move them on or turn them down or whatever. I don't think that's within our purview. I read I guess it's a synopsis of what our duties are. And that doesn't fit in with what that is. And so I'm just throwing that out for the future. Because we're going to be faced with more and more when people know, oh, let's go bring a resolution to the History Commission. And then they'll go, 2 weeks from now, somebody will say, hey, let's go bring another resolution to the History Commission.
No.
And I just think we ought to focus on what our real job is and not get carried away with flavor of the day. So that's all I got to say.
And if I can just respond to that, and if anyone else wants to respond to as well. I do think I think we have the power to do the resolution with the history of, and I'll just be very frank, with my history on this organization, every resolution, and I think we have the power to make resolutions, but I will agree with you that I think every resolution that I personally have presented to City Council from this commission, I think it's been 2 or 3 in the 20 years or so, I've not been chair, but on this board, they have been ignored. So that's just for information. So, I mean, which was why earlier I was trying to say, we can do resolutions, but if we can come up with a plaque instead for Hampton Park, then I think that falls more squarely, back into us. Yeah. 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 Right. Well, again,
Regardless of what they are.
and it's great that we're democratically and we vote by a majority. So, it's in our power to do that or not. Does anyone else have any comments?
I would only say that we are very close to the control of the city. The clerk of council can answer that question for us. Are we empowered to initiate and propose resolutions to city council?
We
Without
are.
mentioning a subject or a time period or an origin of the idea, as long as the resolution would have to come from the commission. Are we authorized to do that?
We are. We have done it,
Okay.
and I've checked with, so we can do it. We do not have a history of doing it, but we can do it.
You've been ignored at city council level.
I'll say that I've seen no action taken on those that we have presented. So, and that's my personal, that's just my personal reminiscence of it. And again, not to be taken, but again, so there we have it. We are allowed to do it. We have done it infrequently, and it's obviously up to us in the future to decide whether we want to pursue it or not. I will say that, according to the statute, if we looked at it, we are constituted by 13 members, including 2 city council members. I have not seen a city council member. I do not know if there are any city council members currently on this committee. And I think in the last 4 years, I remember maybe 1 city council member being here. So I do think that, yeah. Right. Right. I will say that. Right.
Yeah, there's an enabling ordinance and the ordinance answers all those questions.
If I can interrupt real quick, if we can use the microphones, please.
Oh, if we remember to use the microphone, just because it's being recorded.
I'm simply saying that there is an enabling ordinance, and the enabling ordinance answers
go to executive
most of the
session.
questions, if not all of
Yeah.
them, regarding what the commission is empowered to do. We serve, like most commissions, as a kind of expert advisor to the city on subjects that it may not have expertise on, to the city council. on subjects it may not have
Yeah.
expertise
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
that's the function, as far as I'm concerned, of a commission like this. I've championed that since I've been on the commission.
No.
Before that
can-
time, we were
can
just,
to go back.
at one point, we were just reviewing signs, but, and not attempting to influence
Right.
policy.
So-
This is a city that lives on its history.
So if,
And we've got to,
This is Easter week.
yes, and I will say this is Passover, but
May I make
Passover.
Passover also, may I make a motion, since it is Easter week and Passover week, that we adjourn?
okay.
Everybody has other things to do in their own private lives.
Okay, if I can just, we can make that motion if you want to do it, but I will say that Angela Mack has suggested an incredibly brief executive session, but we do not have to do that if we have them, we could do it next time, just to discuss among ourselves is this loggerheads that we're at, but we have a motion before us to adjourn the meeting. So do we have a second?
I'll second it, but I don't know.
and did Angela have
So we've got this, so.
a matter she wanted to raise?
No, it's a
Microphones,
possibility.
please,
We have a
sorry.
motion in front of us to adjourn the meeting. We have a second. Is there any discussion? Do we care to vote? Do we want to adjourn the meeting?
I would simply have the question, if a commissioner asks for executive session, is it mandatory and right and proper for the chairman to call executive session? I don't know.
I have asked, and it is possible for us to go into executive session. So we
I
can do
just-
that next time.
But we can do it next time.
Yeah. So again, so all in favor of adjourning this meeting, please say aye or raise their hand. And no abstentions. Happy Easter, happy Passover, everybody. And
Thank
thank you for your polite passion.
Okay.